All right, we are live on YouTube right now. And I'm going to go ahead and let the guests in. Start recording.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Lee from Cal Poly ITE.
And my name is Becca Karyazis from Georgia Tech ITE.
And we are both super excited to be here today to welcome you all to ITE's International Student Leadership Summit. Our team has spent a lot of time and had a lot of fun planning this amazing summit just for you, so we hope that everyone here will enjoy and learn a lot through this conference.
We would like to thank the 15 schools that helped plan and organize all of the sessions, competitions, and socials that you'll be attending this weekend. With almost 300 students from 90 universities registered for SLS 2021, this summit is going to be a great opportunity for you to meet your peers across the globe while sharpening your skills as a transportation engineer.
So on this slide, we have the agenda for the first day of the conference. And one thing that I really love about SLS is the variety of events and sessions that are held throughout the summit that participants get to attend to become well-rounded leaders. So we have events at this summit covering career guidance, such as what do you need to know before you graduate, where students will have the chance to learn about the public, private, and academic sectors, while also gaining insight about the various ways students can prepare for their future careers. Through SLS, we also have the opportunity to learn about the latest trends of transportation, such as sustainability, which we have a session happening today at 5 p.m. EST. And now for my personal favorites, sessions that connect us with one another and activities that help us become great leaders. We have interactive sessions such as the All Aboard Student Competition, which you all should come by and see which team has designed the best transportation student activity. And of course, the leadership sessions such as the Australian Leadership Panel to learn more about your leadership style.
We have an exciting program on Saturday, February 20th too. I'm planning on learning new engineering concepts at the driving simulation session and at the stand up on your soapbox competitions, where 13 students have the chance to explain hot topics in transportation. I can't wait to learn about how I can affect equity, and I can't wait to talk to other student chapter leaders at 5. And wrapping up the last day with summits with games at the summit is always a good idea.
So also during the summit, we will be using the Zoom webinar and the normal meeting format. So I just wanted to take this quick minute to go over how everyone can get the best experience out of a virtual Student Leadership Summit. So first we have, if you're attending a session through Zoom meeting, please keep your microphones off while someone is speaking or presenting. And if you're attending a panel or a presentation, there will be a time for open Q&A. So please wait until then to unmute or put your question into the chat box. And then for icebreakers, workshops, and socials, feel free to unmute yourself and interact when appropriate. And if you're attending a session through Zoom webinar, just like this opening session, please submit your questions through the Q&A chat box below. Next, we ask you all to turn your cameras on if possible, because we would love to see all your lovely faces. And lastly, we encourage everyone to actively participate in sessions so you all can learn lots and of course to have fun.
I hope everyone has a great time at SLS 2021. And if you enjoyed this weekend, I encourage you to keep an eye out for future events like the Mountain District Virtual SLS in April and the 2022 Southern District SLS in Virginia. For more information how to register for the Mountain District SLS, you can scan the QR code here or visit their website. So without further ado, I'll pass it off to Alyssa to kick off the opening session about purposeful leadership.
Thank you so much, Becca and Catherine. I cannot wait for this event. You have so many great things lined up. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Alyssa Rodriguez. I am the 2021 ITE International IT President. And I'm also the Director of Information Technology for the city of Henderson, Nevada, located in just the southeast corner of the Las Vegas Valley. I started my career in transportation as a student at Montana State University, and I've continued to volunteer with ITE ever since that time, maybe 20 some years ago. But that has certainly proved to be one of the most impactful decisions I've made in my career. ITE is a lot like a family. They're supportive, they're reliable, they're a source of history, they're a source of inspiration and innovation, and they're also full of advice, sometimes whether you want it or not. Today we have over 300 students from 90 different universities participating in this event from across the entire globe. As you participate in the event this weekend, make sure that you say hello, make sure that you connect, and that you also stay in touch. The people that you meet during this summit will likely become your community of colleagues, mentors, and friends that you'll interact with throughout your entire career in transportation. That has definitely been my experience in ITE. I'm so excited for our conversation today on purposeful leadership, and I hope you'll ask lots of questions. Our panelists offer a wide variety of backgrounds, experiences, and successes that you can mine and discover some information that you can use in your careers. But before we do that, I'd like to pass it off to Colleen Nagin from ITE headquarters, and she has a few announcements for us.
Hi, everybody. My name is Colleen Nagin. I'm the Senior Director of Membership for ITE. I've had the pleasure of supporting our student organizers over the last few months as they've put together this meeting for you. And working with them has brought me great joy. So I want to thank all of them for their enthusiasm, their hard work and creativity. This is really going to be a great meeting. I did want to reflect for just one moment. You know, this past year has been really hard. There's been illness and loss, disruption and change, loneliness and discomfort, and it's been really tough. But I hope that all of you consider this meeting and ITE a place of learning, support, and fun. Consider ITE your launch pad as you start your career and also your safety net. Because there are going to be times when you need the launch pad. You need the connections to the networking and the professionals, a leg up on the competition in interviews, experience at taking on leadership roles. And there's other times that you need the safety net. You may need a mentor, a place to ask questions, get support, and maybe some perspective. In ITE, our community of transportation professionals can help you with both. In the coming weeks and months, there are going to be a lot of opportunities for you all to be more involved with ITE. In March alone, we have a Vision Zero competition for students to compete. The Transportation Transforms video competition gives our students a chance to share your perspective on how transportation can literally change communities. ITE is hosting a technology conference on innovative intersections and streets. And 2 of our PhD student members are hosting ITE Student Conversations, a casual opportunity for students to connect, ask questions, and network. Our districts are all gearing up for the Traffic Bowl, and many are going to be hosting virtual meetings throughout the spring. These are great opportunities to not only hear from professionals in your region, but also learn about cutting edge topics, projects, and technology. And they're a great place to network and meet professionals. Our sections are going to be hosting meetings as well. And your section really provides the greatest access to local professionals. I encourage all of you to connect with your districts and sections to learn more about scholarship opportunities and to network as well, but especially on the scholarship piece, because there is tuition assistance out there. When you have an opportunity, take a look at ITE's Career Center. It's a great place to post your resume, search for jobs, and also internships. We're going to be debuting more resources there in the coming weeks. And should you ever want to connect with a mentor, there are many ways to do that. ITE has a virtual mentoring program on our e-community, and many of our districts and sections offer mentoring programs as well. Connect with a professional. It's really great to have another person's perspective as you launch and progress through your career. And I have one last item. All the registration fees that we collected for this meeting are going to support the ITE Diversity Scholars Program. We're going to be making a donation in the name of the ITE Virtual Student Leadership Summit for over $3,000. My one ask of all of you is to spread the word about this great program. It's open to students in high school who are going to be graduating this year. The application deadline is March 15th. Maybe you have a younger sibling or cousin or a friend, or maybe you think somebody at your high school could benefit from a program like this. The wider we can share this information, the better candidates we can find to help and support. Thank you all again for being here. My door is always open, so please reach out if I can ever be of any assistance to you. And with that, I hand it back over to Alyssa.
Thank you so much, Colleen. You know, there's so much going on with ITE, and yes, the pandemic has not been fun in so many ways and tragic in many others, but hopefully ITE has been a light for all of you, a way to connect, a way to find some pandemic positives. And really, without this virtual format, I don't know how we would be able to connect with over 300 students from across the globe. So this is really amazing, such an amazing opportunity. And thank you to everybody that has put this together, and thank you to staff who have supported this as we've gone along. So let's get started. Let's talk about purposeful leadership. And I have 4 panelists that I would like to introduce, and then I'm going to give each one of them 3 to 4 minutes to start to talk to us about their career and themselves. So our panelists are Jennifer Toth, the Transportation Director and County Engineer for Maricopa County in Arizona. Daniel Shihondo, President of TransSoft Solutions Incorporated. Jeff Panotti, Executive Director and ITE CEO. And Sean Light, Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for CBB Transportation Engineers and Planners, and also past President of ITE International. So let's start with some introductions. Jennifer, would you like to start?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Toth, and I'm currently the Director for Maricopa County Department of Transportation and the County Engineer. And Maricopa County is in the Phoenix metropolitan area. I've had a wonderful career. I know Alyssa was like going 20 years. Yeah, it's been over 20 years since I've been in the industry, and thoroughly have enjoyed it. I started out in construction and have worked all the way construction, design, planning, maintenance, the full gamut of a transportation agency. I have worked in both public and private sectors. And I look forward to the discussion and sharing some stories about my experiences. So thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you, Jennifer. Daniel, would you like to do an introduction?
Yes, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are connecting. I'm so pleased to be attending this event. My name is Daniel Shihondo. I'm the president of Transoft Solutions, currently headquartered in Vancouver, BC in Canada. I always say this is where it never ever rains. And I can tell even right now as I look outside, it's not raining. Yeah, so Transoft serves 50,000 customers in 150 countries. And just as a fun fact, I used a computer for the first time during my undergraduate computer programming classes in Kenya many years ago. And just like Jennifer and Alyssa here, I know engineers are number crunchers, and I'm sure their calculators are all out trying to figure out how old I am. But I'll leave that to you. Anyways, so Transoft is a technology company, and one of the things that I discovered very quickly was that software is a tool which has no engineering judgment. It's simply an extension of the engineer's hand and mind. And therefore, my passion has always been in providing the link between technology, tools, and techniques to really address day-to-day engineering challenges. And my own background, I've been in the consulting industry for more than 20 years. I started off just like Jennifer in construction. I did a bit of structural design and then evolved into the transportation side of things. And then I ended up in the software world. So it's been a long road, really trying to find where the passion is. But for me, transportation engineering is a passionate area, because without it, the world basically grinds to a halt. Imagine where people, goods, and services are unable to move. And so I have really enjoyed the profession. I've worked very closely with some of the technical organizations such as TRB, AASHTO, the state DOTs in providing some technical advice on geometric design, design vehicle standards, vehicle turn simulation, roundabout design, sign design, things like that. But more about that a bit later. But I just like what Alyssa mentioned. ITE is a great organization, very good for the continuous professional development, networking, technical conferences, presentation of papers, volunteering, webinars, seminars, everything that you really need to equip you to, for your career. So with that, I thank you, and I'm pleased to be here. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks very much. I'm Jeff Panotti. I'm the ITE Executive Director and CEO. And before I tell you a little bit about my career, I just wanted to add my congratulations to everybody that's been involved in putting this together. Certainly to Katie and Becca to tee off our leadership today, but the 15 organizing universities, Colleen Nagin, who was really the glue that brought it all together from the staff side, and the 300 participants from 90 universities. It really shows the power of one ITE. You know, we're great when we work at a section or a chapter or at a district level, but we're fantastic when we're able to come together across all of those and around the globe as we are today. And I think that's really what we aspire to be, is to be one ITE. And so this is a great example. Our students are showing us the way. Really appreciate that. So I started my career with the Federal Highway Administration out of college. We'll talk a little bit more about mentors later, but I had someone point me in that direction. And so I joined very traditionally as a civil engineer in a 3-year highway engineering training program. moved around the US, worked out on construction projects, worked with state and local governments, with Federal Highway. But one of the things I did is I did a 6-month special assignment working in research and development, and had the opportunity to work with an early traffic simulation model and to demonstrate it and to validate it. And that really sort of brought me back, my interest back to where I had been in school, which was around safety and traffic engineering, traffic operations, all the things that ITE is about. And so I ended up staying, after I finished that training program, for 12 years with Federal Highway, working in their research and development office. I got a master's degree during that time. And I figured out, while I liked kind of the technical part, where my strengths were on the management and leadership side, and gradually gravitated in that direction, holding various jobs in leadership, in kind of safety, ITS, traffic operations. And ultimately, I finished my career, a 32-year career, with the Federal Highway Administration as their executive director. And in that role, I dealt with kind of the whole of the program. So not just the traffic operations and engineering, but the environmental and the construction and the total breadth of what we do as civil engineers or transportation professionals. And then I had the opportunity to come to IT about 5 years ago and go back to sort of my roots a little bit in the safety, traffic operations, ITS area, but to use the management, leadership, and executive skills that I developed at Federal Highway in my current role. And throughout my career, ITE has been part of it. I didn't start as a student member, but I started early professional and have been involved in various roles throughout it. So it was an easy home to come to, because it had been part of my career throughout my career as a transportation professional. So it's great to be with you, and I look forward to our conversation.
Thanks so much, Jeff. And of course, last but not least, Sean, take it away.
All right, thanks. So thanks for having me as part of this meeting. It's a real honor to be here. I've been a huge supporter of IT students and student chapters and these student leadership summits and other activities for a really long time. I want to give you a little bit of a sense of the role that ITE has played in my career, and I probably need to give you a little background to help you understand that. So for starters, I'm a first generation student. And in other words, my sister was the first person of anybody I'm related to ever go to college, and I was number 2. And so we didn't know engineers growing up, right? We didn't hang out with those types of people. And then, and Jeff might even, I don't know if Jeff might even be a little surprised at this. So I didn't go to graduate school to be a transportation engineer. I actually went to be an environmental engineer. And the reason I made the change is what, might be a little bit surprising. The department had a research assistantship in transportation open, and I figured that was a better deal than doing what I was doing at the time, which was going to class during the day and driving a forklift at night to try to pay for going to class during the day. So I made the change. And then on top of all that, my undergraduate, I was really blessed to go to West Point, which I always say was my lottery ticket in life. But when I was there, I was focused on being an Army officer. I really wasn't focused on being a professional engineer. So when I was sitting where you all are sitting today, I topped the clueless charts on the transportation profession. I had no idea how to get a job, what transportation engineers did, how to be successful, any of that. So I found a home in ITE in that it allowed me to develop relationships, not only with my peers, but with professionals. And in those relationships, I was able to learn about careers in transportation and what is the difference, all these questions you have, right? And I was able to get some really good insights to help guide my career. Those people that helped me back then are still good friends of mine today. And throughout my career, I've really leveraged that ITE network. So some of the coolest things that I've been able to do have been directly ITE related. One of the high points of my time on the board was traveling down to Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria to support the students and the transportation professionals down there. So ITE has really played a central role in all of that. And just really grateful for this organization. So my takeaway to you is there's 2 things that come up in every ITE survey as far as why is IT important. It's always technical content and it's the networks. So really take an opportunity to get to know people, to leverage those networks, because those relationships are going to be important through your entire career.
Thank you, Sean. I think I had a similar experience at the university. The student research assistantship I took paid $7.50 an hour, which was $2 more than what I was making in my other job. So here I am. So one of the first questions that we always get every time we do a leadership type presentation comes from the students, and it's, what kind of job should I get right after the university? How do I know if I'm a good fit for consulting or for a public agency or for industry? You know, how do I find the right one? And so with that, I'm going to start with Jeff.
So my advice when I get this question is always get a job, right? So the first thing you need to get, is a job. So if you have a great opportunity, if you're blessed to have many opportunities, then by all means, think through which one seems to fit your interest at that point in time, and your personality, maybe your, do you know somebody there? Do you have a connection? Is there something that draws you to one of the options? And it might be, it might be a relationship with someone that you've made as a student member of ITE, a connection you've made, as Sean was, talking about. But if they're, to get started someplace, because the only way you can really figure out, I think, where your passion lies, what you want to do as a professional over the long term in your career, is by getting your hands dirty and getting into the profession and experiencing that, whether it be in the public sector or in the private sector, at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. I think, that's the thing, is to get engaged. And the more you're in, the more you'll understand, what you like to do, maybe what you don't like to do. And, your first job, by all means, no job is a lifetime commitment, but your first job is anything but that. It's an opportunity to get some experience and to see where that takes you.
Daniel, would you like to add to that? Or what was your first job and how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so I completely echo Jeff's comments there. My own background, when I look at when I graduated, I graduated from the University of Nairobi in Kenya. And it's a totally different environment from what we have here in Canada. At that time, jobs were in short supply, and with a high population of students graduating, my first responsibility, just like what Jeff said, was I needed a job. Any sort of job, I was going to go for it. So what I did was that I made some applications and things like that. And luckily, at that time, the companies that were hiring were more construction type. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I saw myself being more in the consulting side, but circumstances just forced me to go into construction. And so I started off there with, being a site engineer and getting my hands dirty and getting to know how things are actually constructed. And it was the best decision of my whole career. I can tell you that, because that shaped my whole consulting life, because I've always said that there's no point of you coming up with a design which can never be built. Okay, a lot of engineers will put things on paper, but when they get asked, they had questions about how does it get constructed. They are not able to provide that input. So I also agree. Don't be too choosy. Whatever opportunity comes up, get it. But then you maintain your networks and just keep a log on the things that you like, and keep your ears and eyes open for opportunities. And when those other opportunities come, move on and see whether that will channel you towards your passion. So I'll also advise that, get the initial foot in the door. And normally from now as an employer, it is easier always to get another job while you have another job. Okay, if you are jobless and you're looking for that first job, the very perfect job, I can assure you it never comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And Jennifer and Sean, you guys want to square off over who's the dark side, consulting or public agency?
Oh, go ahead.
So I had an interesting career that I started out in the public service and started it with Arizona Department of Transportation in their engineering training program, and then took on construction as a resident engineer as a permanent position with ADOT, and then also moved into project management. So at that time, I saw an opportunity to go to the private sector, and I was really interested in the planning area. And so I was able to move over and work in the planning arena in the private sector. And eventually, after 3 to 5 years, I ended up moving back to the public sector. And I think the difference that I saw and what really drew me back to the public sector was the policy aspect and the leadership aspect, as Jeff talked about earlier. That's really my strength. And so it came naturally to come back to the public service and work with elected officials and legislators and moving transportation policy forward. And so that's been, both sides are wonderful. I was very thankful that when I came back to public sector that I did have that private sector experience, because I think a lot of public agency employees don't have that balance, and so they don't know what goes into putting a proposal together and what it takes to actually cost out a project. And so I was very thankful that I had that experience and had that understanding from the private side and could bring that to bear on the public side as well.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that I was going to add, so I've been responsible for our staffing at CBB for a number of years. And I've learned something that's pretty important. And when I first was doing that, I would look for the best grades, the smartest kids that were out there. And what I've learned is it's really about fit and personality. And if you can take some time for self-reflection and understand yourself. And what I mean by that, even within our company, we do design build work, which is like high pressure and high stress. Some people thrive on it and they love it, and other people, they don't like it. It makes them uncomfortable. There are some people that want to be outside in the field, so they work out really well for our ops group. And there's some people who would rather sit at a computer, those are the modelers, right? And there's some people who need human interaction and they want to talk to people. So we find, positions where they've got, multidisciplinary teams, or they're working with developers or something else. So if you can understand, less at a technical level, maybe more just on a personal level of what you really enjoy and like, when you're talking to employers, look for those opportunities that, I'm going to be able to work with other people, or, I'm going to be able to sit and focus, whatever that is going to be important to you. And then recognize that those things change over time. Sometimes people really like being outside, and when you get a little older, maybe not, right? So it's natural to make career shifts along the way and change what you're doing. But I think it really comes back, we're all unique individuals. And for you personally, what is it about you that would make you really happy and enjoy going to work every day?
Thank you, Sean. And I should mention to all of our attendees today, if you have questions for the panelists, feel free to enter them into the Q&A chat box. And you can also review any other questions that people have entered in there and upvote them if you'd really like to have that question answered. So for our panelists, as we covered that last question, I heard a lot about gaining experience, different job opportunities offering different technical experiences that then improved your career and it gave you more perspective on what's happening in the industry. But I'm curious about some of those other skills, some of the other things, leadership skills, the soft skills. How did you obtain those and how have those helped you in your leadership roles? And so Sean, I'm going to come back to you. You were a leader in ITE, so how did you gain those tools?
It's I guess that's a complex answer to some extent. It's a lot of life experiences and a lot of opportunities. So, if you go back to me being in high school, I don't think I would have considered myself a leader at all. Like I said, got an appointment to West Point, and that school is all about leadership. So there was a lot of leadership training, and I guess thinking back on it, a lot of it is having confidence in your abilities and what you do, and in being able to feel confident taking a step forward. So one of the things that's I've done through my career, and it's happened through ITE, is maybe being the person that I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to raise my hand and we'll figure it out. We'll give it a try. And then what happens a lot of times is people see you out there either making a fool of yourself or maybe having some level of success, and they say, hey, I can do that too, right? So, we've done a lot of really cool things. When I came to St. Louis, there was an organization called Team that wasn't affiliated with ITE. We made that into an ITE chapter. We created our first day conference from that. Now we're an ITE section, and this thing is just amazing. It's great. I was joking with the panel before we started that, it's amazing. You've got like 90 universities on here, right? So now that you cut the dead weight off, right? Then I'm gone, and I guess Mike Sanderson's gone. I think he's still gone, and everything. Look at you guys are thriving. So, but it's maybe the way to sum it up is be willing to put yourself out there and take on responsibilities and do something that you've never done before. And I was talking about Puerto Rico. I remember this is pretty much right after Hurricane Maria. I'd gotten on the plane and we'd worked something out with the ITE president down there, and I'd had a couple of Facebook conversations, but I remember flying down there, I felt this pit, just pit in my stomach. I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I'm flying down to some place that was really a disaster zone. I don't know anybody in Puerto Rico at the time. What am I doing? But it ended up being just a really fantastic trip and a really powerful, because I was just willing to take that chance and give it a try.
Sean, we're thriving because of the work that you did. So,
absolutely.
Y'all are doing awesome, that's for sure.
So Jeff, I want to turn that question to you too. Some of the other skills that you mentioned and being able to apply them at ITE headquarters, but how did those help you in your career at FHWA beyond just the technical skills?
Yeah, I think when I reflect on my career, it was very much grounded in the technical side, in my undergraduate degree and my graduate degree later, and my early activities and work were very technically oriented. But I would say from about, the last 2/3 of my career at FHWA and at ITE, it's really all been about the non-technical. Like I have that grounding and that knowledge and hopefully credibility of having been engaged in technical activities. But really the skill set I use is more strategic planning, it's communication, it's team building, it's all of the other skills that you don't focus on so much when you're in school, that have been most important in my career. And it is where, being in a large organization like FHWA, there were lots of opportunities for it, both lots of opportunities to develop those skills, both in my job and in other opportunities. There's always some, and I know Jennifer will recognize there's always some task force you can be involved in and lead, or you can volunteer for collateral duty or activity. So there's lots of opportunities. And, you know, as Sean said a little bit, sometimes it's raising your hand that you want to be involved in those, or asking for someone to support you in being involved. It's, you know, it's finding those opportunities and taking advantage of those. And I would say taking advantage of outside of your organization opportunities. I got very involved in the Transportation Research Board since I was working in a research environment, ended up getting on and chairing some TRB committees. I was very involved with my local ITE section, ended up getting in leadership roles there. So there were lots of different settings where I had the opportunity to be involved in leadership and to make mistakes. I mean, leadership growth is just like technical growth. I mean, you don't get it all right the first time or the second or sometimes the third, and you have to kind of practice it and work through it. And I think having a variety of settings and opportunities to develop your leadership style and your skills is important, particularly as you're a young professional in your career.
Jennifer, has that been your experience too? It's those other duties as assigned?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I'll just reiterate what Jeff said. You know, I'm a late bloomer to ITE. There wasn't an ITE chapter when I went to school. And so it's been within the last 6 years that I've become involved in ITE more on the national level. And so, but I was involved in a lot of different organizations, in particular the Society of Women Engineers, and exactly that. Get involved and try those leadership roles out in those organizations, because as Jeff said, you learn from your failures. And that's a safe environment to fail in because it's a voluntary basis. It's not your job. And so I always encourage people, that's exactly what I say. It's an opportunity to fail and learn. And that's how you are going to learn as a leader. What works, what doesn't work. And what works in certain situations might not work in the next situation. So it's also, I would encourage you to find somebody that you view as a leader and watch them. You know, that's what I did in my first job as a resident engineer. There was a county engineer in Mojave County that I just really respected. And I would just sit back in the meeting and watch how he handled the situations. And so that's a great opportunity to learn as well, is by observing and watching and pick somebody who you see yourself in and be able to emulate that.
That's a great point, Jennifer. I do the same thing, watching my bosses during city council meetings and things. So Daniel, when in several of your remarks, you mentioned passion and finding your passion. And there's a great question in the chat pod that says, what were the things in your journey that always motivated you to push yourself towards success? Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the thing about passion, at least from my own background, stems from my childhood. I always say you need to ask yourself, you know, and people have always asked, so where do I find my passion? Think about the things that you love, things that do not involve money, you know, like, you know, your regular job or something like that. If you eliminate all that, there are always things that you'll find that you can say you truly value. And so for me, as a young child, I was passionate about how things worked, how the mechanical work, you know, tear apart my dad's radio and was unable to fix it, and I got into trouble, and I was always very, very inquisitive, you know, and my dad was a university professor, and he just looked at me and said, this is totally a technical person. he would be miserable in a normal school. So he sent me to a technical school in Kenya. In Kenya, we had two streams. You could be a technical, you could just go on a technical line, or you end up in what they call the grammar schools. And so I, from elementary school, I joined a school that did, overhauling of car engines and electrical wiring and plumbing and carpentry and things like that. And that is where my passion was, working with the hands and making sure that that things work, right? So for me, I think that is how I was able to discover that I am more of a problem solver, but on the more of the technical side. And that is where my strength has been. And then when I joined engineering, obviously, is where I said, I want to be involved in a profession which helps society. And transportation is one of those which you can imagine without roads, without railways and airports and things like that. And that area then became my area of passion. And then over time, I said, okay, with just the technical skills of designing were not really enough for me. And I ventured into the software side, where I was using my passion in engineering, that is hands-on design, to develop software that engineers would use, and that passion comes through even when I engage some of our users and the products that we produce. Because I was talking to another individual the other day, and I said, look at all these sports people who are enjoying playing the NBA and the NHL and all that, and they wake up in the morning looking forward to play. They don't look at it and say, oh, this is another week, or today is Monday or something like that. So you need to get to that point where you find that thing that you truly enjoy, and it's part and parcel of your life. And then I think you'll have the true calling of what your passion is.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm going to remember that when I wake up in the morning on Monday and think, yes, I get to do this. Well, that is so true. Another question that came from the chat pod is, how were you able to set professional goals to ensure continued growth throughout your career? And so I'm wondering if you could speak to the importance of setting goals. And Jennifer, would you like to take that?
Sure. So I would say, especially as a first, when you get your first job, is really sitting down and having those discussions with your supervisor as to, where you have to have some idea of where you want to go, but also, exploring what they see as opportunities for you in that professional development. So early on in my career, my supervisor wanted me to go to TTI and undertake a mentorship program there. And so that was very beneficial in my career as well. But she identified it for me. So I think it's having that, that relationship with your supervisor to talk about professional development and what that means, and to you in particular, in terms of what your goals are, and being able to identify where you want to take that next step and put that action plan in place with your supervisor. If you want to develop certain skills, make sure that you're having that conversation. You may not know how to get those skills directly, but your supervisor or others, a mentor, will help you navigate that to get those skills in order to meet that goal.
So you don't have to do it all on your own.
No,
Ask for help.
always.
Oh, that's great. One of the popular questions that's coming up now is, what is the hardest part about learning to lead a team efficiently, and how did you overcome that? So Jeff, in your career, you've led a number of different teams. Would you like to speak to that question?
Yeah, I think it's probably assessing the strengths and weaknesses of your team, understanding what you have for team members, and being able to, clearly articulate to them what the task is, what success looks like, right? Because people show up sometimes on a team from different backgrounds. They've been assigned there, they volunteered there, they whatever, and you have this group of folks, and you want to give them a vision for, okay, here's where we're going to try to go. Not necessarily I have all the, I'm not charting the exact path to get there, but I have an idea of what success looks like, or what the end product needs to look like. And now we as a team need to figure out how we're going to get there. And, you will have some people around the table that think they know the answer right away. And you have some people that are not speaking up, and you'll have some people that have done something like it before. And you'll have some people that maybe this is their first time involved. And I think your job as a leader is to draw from each of those individuals what they can contribute to the task. And some will contribute more, and some will contribute less, and some will have strengths on the technical side maybe, and some are stronger on the strategic or the communication side. And I think that's your challenge, is to bring them all together so that they feel like a team, everybody's contributing, they're all pushing in that same direction toward that same goal. And and at the end of the day, they all feel part of the success that hopefully you achieve as a team.
Alyssa, I think, I'll just chime in. One of the hardest things that I had to overcome was speaking like an engineer. And I remember when I was with Arizona DOT, and we just had a huge landslide, and it shut down a major route. And so we were in Washington, D.C. on a congressional visit, and my boss was saying, okay, what are you going to say, and how are you going to, and he just said, stop right there. You're talking like an engineer. You need to make it relatable to the public and to an elected official. And so that's a hard thing from coming from a technical background, where that's our world, is how making that bridge in terms of being able to translate the technical speak into regular speak. And so that's been my hardest thing, and I still have a hard time sometimes with that. Working on that every day.
Yeah, that's a very, very important skill.
Because the teams we're working with are usually a diverse team. They're not all people with the same background as us, and may not have the same, information or technical skills. So definitely.
Yeah, Alyssa, the only other thing that I was going to add, which I think is important in this, is you can't understate the value of trust in character in leading teams. So, a little nugget that I got when I was at West Point, there was a guy named Norman Schwarzkopf, you can look it up, that came and spoke to the Corps Cadets, and he said, to be a leader, you need two things. You need competence and character. So the competence is one everybody can understand pretty directly. If you're a bridge engineer and your bridges fall down, you're not going to be a bridge engineer for very long. The character part is really important, because at the end of the day, we're a profession of relationships, especially in transportation, and it's relationships within our community, but it's relationships within the greater community as well. So if you have a team and they trust you and you're honest with them, you can get away with making a mistake, or you can get away with asking people to do things because they know that you're asking them to do it, because if you say it's important, that it is important. I think we've all seen this in the last couple of years, the importance of being able to trust your leadership, and earning that trust is super, super important. So I think that's a real big part of being able to lead teams. If you can establish trust and the people that are working with you trust you, that really goes a long way to solve a lot of problems.
Thank you for that, Sean. And, you know, as we've talked about developing skills and setting goals and building a team and leading a team with trust. But things don't always go the way we planned. You know, and so there's some questions in the chat about, you know, how do you decide to take risks and at what level? And not all of them work out, so you have to deal with failure. And not everybody loves you, even though you would hope that they do. So how do you deal with criticism? So if Sean, maybe you could enlighten us on that, talk about risk, failure, and criticism.
Sure. So what I strongly believe that if you're going to do really cool things, you have to be willing to take some risks. And I'm going to say two words that'll make some people's head go down, but risk management. So when you're contemplating doing something, what I always look at is, okay, what's the downside, right? So if I fail, what's going to happen? Mm-hmm. An example of this, we're working on a design build project in St. Louis. We hired a grad student as we were working on the proposal. We were interviewing him, and he did all his graduate research on drones. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have a drone up in the air as a part of this project? MoDOT's never done that. And it could help us manage traffic, right? So where we have lack in traffic cameras, we get this drone up to help our ops guys out to figure out, you know, where they need to retime traffic signals. So we put that in the proposal, and the downside of that is we just wouldn't have a drone up, right? And we crafted a proposal. We used words like, we will explore doing this. We're going to try to do this. We didn't promise we would do it, right? We weren't going to be contractually held to doing it because we didn't know if we could. But we talked a lot about what we were in all the steps we had taken that we thought we could probably do it. Turns out we got the drone up. It's awesome. We're right by Lambert Airport. So MoDOT, when we won the job, said, that's really cool. You proposed that. You're never going to get the drone up in the air because you're by the airport. And this guy figured out how to get it done. So that's one. I wouldn't take a risk, you know, that maybe would put, you know, a risk that put the company at stake, right? So it's taking risks, but taking them strategically. Mm-hmm. So that you have a plan B if you need it, or if you fail, it's not catastrophic. And then you've got to have an upside. So it's really doing your homework and trying to evaluate that. On the other side, on the criticism side, and Jeff will remember some of this from when I was IT president, I listen, right? So when people criticize, I take it to heart and I try to think through, okay, what is it why are they making this comment, this criticism? Is there something I can do to better myself? I've been an adjunct professor at WashU for almost 20 years. And every semester we get the student evaluations, and I read those. And some of them are, you know, make you feel good and happy. And some of them, man, they sting, right? And so I go back and think about, okay, why did this person make this comment? And is there something that I need to change or I can change to make the class better for next time around? So I don't think criticisms are a bad thing. I think they're, you know, if you look at all of this stuff honestly and with the risks, if you're honest with the people you're dealing with, like if I'm going to do something that's somewhat risky with our company, I'm going to be completely honest with my partners and saying, this could go well, and here's what that looks like. And this could be catastrophically bad, and here's what that looks like. So are we all in this together, right? So again, it gets back to that being honest, and that's where that trust comes from, and making sure that, you know, if you're going to take a risk, your boss knows I'm looking at doing this, and this might not go very well. And are you going to have my back if it blows up on me, right? So I think it gets a lot of it back to that honesty and trust thing.
Just to maybe echo or pick up a couple of Sean's points. One of the things I was proudest accomplishment at Federal Highway is that when I was executive director, we were ranked as one of the best places to work in the federal government. And how we got there was surveying our employees and taking their feedback. And just like Sean said, man, I mean, when you have 3,000 employees, man, you get a lot of feedback, and it isn't all love. And so, you know, you need to be willing to accept some of that and recognize, and I think this translates to whatever you're doing, it's really hard to make everybody happy or satisfied. And you need to accept that as a leader. If you are a person that has to have everybody be happy at the end of the day, that's a hard thing to achieve as a leader. But you can make most of the people happy if you listen and if you do, the right things. The other thing I would say is when you're making decisions, you're never going to be 100% sure. If you're 100% sure, there's no decision left to be made. So you have to get to that point where you feel in your gut that this is the right decision, and you have enough in your head, enough of evidence that your likelihood of success is pretty strong, but it's not 100% and guaranteed. And, it's Sean's plan B or, your contingency plan you need to have, because it might not work out. But if you're going to be a leader, you have to make decisions before it's certain that it is the right direction. And one of the best ways, I think, to understand your decision is to really explore the arguments against it, which I think is what Sean also said. Like, you're making the arguments for it in your head all the time. What you need to do is look at the arguments against it and make sure that they're not more valid than the ones you have in your head. And I think if you do those things, that in the end, you'll come to good decisions, and most of them will be right, not all of them.
Yeah, I'll just add a comment on that. It's a commonly occurring item. In my particular case, surveys have always unveiled a lot of information, and in there, especially the anonymous ones, there will be a lot of criticisms coming through. And so as a leader, what you need to be doing is looking for common trends, because if you get like 100 respondents or 1,000 or things like that, you cannot make everybody happy. And therefore you look through them and say, okay, what are the main trends that we are seeing here? And even the trends themselves, you need to evaluate them and say, what are the items that are most critical to deal with? So for you being a leader, you're now trying to balance what is the thing that is going to really cause problems within that organization. And then from there, you can escalate it a little bit more by, we've done a second survey, for example, after 6 months. And sometimes you find those criticisms come up again, or they disappear, because those criticisms sometimes are periodical. Is it at the end of the year? Is it mid of the year? Is beginning of the year, and things like that? It just depends on a lot of things. So sometimes you can get criticisms, but you're not aware the environment that has caused those criticisms. So some are valid, but some could just be, like the wind is blowing. If somebody you'd ask that question again, they'll be saying, no, I didn't say it. So you don't want to spend too much time on items like that, because while you're spending on time on things like that, the group has moved on. They probably have another set of criticisms.
That's a great point. Somebody pointed out to me years ago that it's just work. It's not you personally. And as a transportation professional, you're going to get criticism. You're going to get blasted on Nextdoor for sure. But, it's just work. And some of it, you listen to all of it and take away what you can. And some of it, you just move on. So there's a question I want to get to in the chat pod, because I think this is a really important one. And it's about the question of balance. So being transportation professionals and being in these leadership roles is just one facet of our lives, but there's so much more going on, and it's hard to, make time for all of that. And I know each of you has a lot of things going on. So how do you find balance? And, or do you find balance? Or are there any challenges? And so Jennifer, I'll start with you.
Well, that's always a tough one. finding balance early in my career was a bit more difficult for me in terms of becoming a new parent and having a career. So later in life, I would realize that the best advice I would say for balance is to make sure you have a partner who supports you, who provides, between both of you provides that balance. I think that's an incredibly important aspect, is your partner has to really be supportive and be a part of your career as well as part of your family, and stress that balance between the two.
Thank you. I think that partnership is so important. Finding someone that you can, help you as you're going through life.
I do think you're better all the way around when you have balance. Like your family or your friends, your outside of your profession passions, the things you like to do, all of that is who you are, right? And the more well-rounded you can be, I think the better you are as a transportation professional and as a person. So I've always, I had, some pretty intense jobs, but I've always tried to, when I was working, I worked very focused and worked really hard, but I also tried not to, work on the weekends and work at night and work. I mean, I'm not saying I never did or I didn't think about it, but I also tried to draw some lines and create some space for family and for, hobbies and other things. And I think at the end of the day, it's a happier life and a happier, all the way around when you do that. And, it's not easy sometimes to draw those boundaries or to figure out, and you can't just be, the other thing I would say for me is it wasn't just like turn the computer off and I'm not going to look at it again till in the morning or think about it. I couldn't draw those hard lines, but there's ways to like separate yourself and come back to it and think about it in the shower or on the drive to work. I solved more problems driving back and forth to work than I probably ever solved at work, but that means that when I got home, then I was there in that moment and no longer thinking about, that problem I was trying to solve at work. And I think that's kind of what you need to figure out for yourself, how to create that balance. It's probably different for different people.
Absolutely. I think the other thing is it's going to ebb and flow. Mm-hmm. And, you might find a position where you see that it's not in balance. And, obviously I went through that in terms of my last position and to where I am now, and have that more balanced approach for your entire life, which is extremely important, like Jeff said.
Yeah, I'll also add that the idea about balance also depends at what stage of life you're in. Mm-hmm. I was on a project team at some stage, and I needed a certain project in terms of the experience. That there was my immediate need, and this project was not in Vancouver. I had to take a 2-hour flight north of BC, where it always snows and it's cold and all that. Like almost like a once in a lifetime experience. But then that meant I was going to be away from family, and that there was an issue. But at that time, for me to advance in my career, I needed to make certain certain decisions. So that balancing act is always a very delicate thing, which you don't just want to be always on the move for such projects. Of course, one side is going to is going to suffer. But then if you say, okay, I'm going to be away on this project for 6 months or 3 months, whatever it is, and advance my career that way. After that, I'm going to be back in Vancouver, and I want to travel again, and you'll see me every day and things like that. So on the one side, you've already gained your professional status, and then on the other side, you come back and take on the pieces that you probably did not you had kind of left behind. So it's a constant balance, really. You know, you cannot ever say I've reached optimum balance. But again, just like what Jeff said, I think you need to find a point where you're not just doing one thing every time, and that you need to weave your work, you need to weave your hobbies, you need to weave all these other things that are important in your life in that same 24 hours or whatever unit you have. And if that is what makes you a complete person, and it makes you feel fulfilled, you know, and that is how it should be. And the balance as defined by myself or somebody else is going to be totally different for absolutely the same conditions. So nobody will tell you or define to you what balance looks like. It's just where you are in your life. And I can tell you it keeps evolving. So you're constantly checking and prioritizing things. Some things go up, some things go down, to maintain that balance in your life.
The other thing that, they're stalling. The other thing that I would add, and this is from running, again, a staff for a number of years, is the importance of communicating to, you know, whoever maybe your manager or assigning work tasks or whatever that looks like. What I see a trap happens a lot of times is somebody is really good and ambitious comes into a job and they do a really good job. And because they're doing a really good job, I was told in my first job that your good work will be rewarded with more work. So you build that person up with more, and everybody wants them to do their projects, and, you know, eventually you burn that person out. So what I figured out is we're burning out our best people. And why are we burning out our best people? Well, on the other side, that young, you know, engineer a lot of times is, you know, they want to prove themselves. So they're trying to work really hard, and they feel that they don't understand what the expectations are. So I have a conversation and I tell people, it's okay to tell me no. It's okay to tell me too much. It's okay to cry uncle. I don't want to burn you out. So let's have some really good, honest conversations of what's going on in your life. And I don't need to know all your personal life details, but are we hitting that balance? So I think that conversation back with the people that you're working for of, yeah, I'm in balance, this is great. Or, you know what, you know, I'm looking for some more opportunities, or, you know, uncle, you're wearing me out. I think to get a relationship with who's ever, again, feeding you that work and having that conversation is super important, because what I tell everybody is I don't know. I do not know what your personal life situation is. And I don't know if you're overwhelmed or what that looks like. So help me understand so I can do that better. But I think that's what's missing a lot of times, when why people just get overwhelmed, is because that communication isn't there, where who's ever assigning the work really understands that they're doing that. Because most people who are in management positions don't want to do that.
Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
I'll just add to that. I think it's important. I think early in my career, I was too afraid to say no. And then, you know, once I had the opportunity, there was a time when I was working in the private sector and they wanted me to head up a project in Nashville, and I lived in Texas. And I'd just moved, me and my daughter, to Texas, and I had to say no to the vice president of the company that, I just can't be the project manager and relocate once again. And I thought, oh my gosh, am I committing career suicide here by turning this down? But, in less than a year later, I was promoted to associate vice president. So, it's you've got to be true to yourself. And like Sean said, have that communication, have that discussion with your supervisor. That's extremely important.
Yeah, I just wanted to add again, the power of communication is so critical. You'll be amazed how much an employer is willing to be flexible to ensure that you have that that flexibility. For example, at our organization, we have people at different levels. There's people who, pre-COVID, they would bring their kids to work because daycare had issues, and for me, for the longest time, I was a hockey dad. As you know, hockey is Canada's national sport, and I would say at 2 p.m., sorry, I've got to be at an ice rink 2 hours away. We go there, and my son's team gets hammered 10 goals, 10 goal to nil, and I'll be wondering, okay, was it worth the drive? But you see, I have to be there for the family, as well as being flexible. Then I would get home and put in the hours later when there's peace and quiet, when my mind is totally clear. And so having that communication, assuring your teammates that deadlines are not going to slip, that I'll still pull my weight, even though I was at a cold ice rink and things like that. Just be open. Communication is critical.
Yeah, I think that all of that is so important. One of the things I first learned when I came to the city of Henderson is our maintenance superintendent was the driver of so much work that we were doing at the city. But he would take vacations for 2 weeks at a time. And you know what? We were fine. You can take that time and you can go and you rely on your team and you build that trust, as Sean mentioned, and things still get done, and you come back with a clear mind and you complete the tasks that you need to get done. And as Daniel mentioned, and it'll work out. So it's unfortunate that we've come to the end of our time today. It's a quarter after, and there are still a number of questions in the IT chat, in the chat pod, that I wish we could get to. But I think one of the things you'll find with ITE is that we're all very approachable. As I mentioned, it's just like a family in ITE. So any one of us that are on this call today, if you have any follow-up questions, reach out to us through social media or through email or through the IT community. We'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So I think we have a follow-up slide here, but I did want to say thank you to all the panelists. I know we all greatly appreciate your insight and you sharing your experiences with all of us today. And again, thank you to the organizers, to all the universities that helped to put this together, and to Catherine and Becca for taking the lead on this session itself. And of course, thank you again to Colleen and the rest of the staff that are making this possible. There are a number of other events that are coming up today. So later at 3 p.m. Eastern, there are 3 sessions coming up, followed by a lot of great content for the rest of today and tomorrow. I'm personally looking forward to these sessions with Australia later today. So lots of great stuff. So with that, thank you so much, and we'll see you at the rest of the conference.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Thank you.